Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Faith Leaders Tele-Town Hall with Mayor Randall Woodfin. Many of you have joined us on the line just now. I want to remind you of a couple of things before the call begins. You can ask questions by pressing 7 on your dial pad. When you press 7 on your dial pad, you'll be connected immediately to a screener who will take your question, and then we will have your question put in the system. We will try to answer as many questions as possible throughout this phone call. So once again, if you have a question, press 7 on your dial pad. We have screeners standing by to take your question. In addition, we will have opportunities where we'd like to ask you some questions as well. I will give you directions on how you can respond to our questions, and that will help us to better understand the situation that you're facing right now and the elements that you have put in place to address COVID-19 at this time. Thank you all for what you do in your communities. Thank you for being with us. And with that, let me now introduce Mayor Randall L. Woodfin.
Hey, thank you so much, Rick, and good afternoon to the faith leaders on this call. I'm happy you can join us. I want to thank you for making time again this week, and I'll be brief. As many of you all know, this is the 4th straight week that we've had an open dialogue about how our faith community is affected and should respond collectively to the crisis at hand. For those that have joined us for our previous town halls, I want to welcome you all back. And for those that are joining for the first time, I want to welcome you as well and want to ensure we all remind you that we are holding this call today as a forum to answer your questions. This week, we announced hazard pay for our first responders. We actually did that earlier today, and the council supported that, for essential employees as well in public works. We also put measures in place to modify their schedules, reducing their exposure to people and items that put them at risk. These are just a few of the measures we've put in place, and beyond providing some additional safety equipment and sanitary protocols for all of our employees. Beyond that, I think it's important as leaders in the community, you all should know that we all have to be strapped in and hunker down for another few weeks. As many of you all know, our local and state shelter-in-place orders are in place until Thursday, April 30th. And we continue to stay in contact with our health professionals who are informing our governing decisions to keep things in place or relax rules. At this point, if we want to see some return to normalcy in May, I have a firm belief we need to ask all of you all, and for your assistance in engaging your parishioners, to stay in place and ensure we can beat this virus back to a more manageable place. And so I want to take your questions, and before I do, I want to let you know that I've asked Congresswoman Terry Sewell to join us near the end of our call to share a few words about her efforts to advocate for all. There are some resources that she's going to bring to light in the Federal CARES Act related to nonprofits that I think many of you all on this call may find valuable. Before we get into our Q&A, I've asked Pastor Julie Conradi to open us up for a word of prayer, and after that, we'll go straight into the questions. Pastor Conradi?
Thank you, Mayor Woodfin. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, thank you for gathering with us today to share in our community as we share our hearts and minds with one another. Be with our city leaders as they evaluate, plan, and assess their vital decisions during this challenging time. We are so thankful for their wisdom. We especially lift up those who are suffering, the sick and the dying, their families, those struggling to feed and educate their children, those on the margins who were already in precarious situations. We lift up the first responders and our medical teams as they are using every ounce of their energy and knowledge to help us through this pandemic. We are thankful for our community, for all the helpers, and for the beautiful spring weather, which reminds us daily how new life and hope and hand washing will see us through. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Conradi. as Rick said, at this point I want to actually turn it back over to Rick, who will guide us through our Q&A.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder for you again, this is the time when we would like to take some questions from you. If you will press 7 on your dial pad, once again, press 7 on your dial pad. You'll be connected to one of our screeners who will talk with you, take your question, and plug it into the system so that we can see it here on our screens and move forward. As we're doing that also, as we mentioned, we have some questions for you that we would like to ask. We would like to get some feedback from you at this time. During this time, the first question, during this time, is your church offering any of the following services? Press 1 for food pantry, press 2 for child care, press 3 for senior care or senior services. Once again, during this time, is your church offering any of the following services? Press 1 for food pantry, press 2 for child care, and press 3 for senior care or senior services. We will be taking those questions taking those answers over the next 2 to 3 minutes. As you answer that question, we will continue our conversation. And before we close out this poll, we will remind you once again, if you haven't responded, that you have an opportunity to respond. So thank you for your feedback in this. It helps us better coordinate and better understand what folks are doing at this time. So at this time, as we wait for our questions to come in through the screeners, again, press 7 on your dial pad if you have a question you would like to ask. With that, I will start off with a question, Mayor, that is an obvious thing on many people's minds. This is a major week for Christian churches throughout our area. It is Easter Sunday coming up. On this Sunday, many people usually are planning large worship services. What has been the guidance, and what have you been hearing from faith leaders over the last few days as we approach this time?
Well, the guidance I've received from the health department is that they don't believe service should be held in the actual physical spaces of these places of worship, because this week and next week, not just in Birmingham, not just in Alabama, but in America, they believe it's probably the most critical, heightened time around community spread, around people not only contracting it, but people being in a position that the numbers of possible death may increase. Because of that possible exposure, it's unfortunate that the recommendation that's been made to faith leaders, that's been made to the parishioners and everyone else, is to not have service in person, but to continue the tele-style form of church, meaning using social media, using phone, using various channels inside of the physical space of a place of worship. And I hate that, especially with what this Sunday represents to so many believers. But I believe in the middle of a health crisis, it is the best decision to make in order to continue to save lives and flatten this curve.
Thank you, Mayor. We are about to plug in one other question. Just stand by one moment for us to load this. Once again, a reminder for you, we're loading a couple of questions at this time. Please press 7 on your dial pad. If you have a question, press 7 on your dial pad. If you have a question, we're loading up our first question here. With not having people in the building, is that against the 10 people being inside for streaming? Would that be against what you were saying now? So I believe that is if you have more than 10 people in the building to help with the streaming service.
Yeah. So a note. Let me make a note before I answer that question. I probably should have started off with this, which is very important. That's to thank you all. Where we are now as a community is very different than where we were 3 weeks ago. And many of us had a very hard time as individuals, as leaders, as families, as customers, as faith leaders, as any role any title you want to put over any of our heads as human beings in this community, had a very hard time either accepting and or adjusting to where we are today. But I know many faith leaders out of the gate took this very seriously and moved quickly to adjust how they engage their parishioners. And if no one's told you all this in a while over the last 3 weeks, because we've all been so immersed in what we're doing, adjusting to this, what I define as a short-term, temporary new normal. I do want to thank you for your leadership and for assisting elected officials and assisting the health department and promoting doing what's best to protect and save lives. So thank you. To that question around the 10 people being in the actual physical space, to be in a position to deliver streaming services, I believe that's okay. I think it's important while people are inside, for that small handful of people that are providing that streaming services, that they follow the same protocols of social distancing as if it was any other space, to watch what they touch, watch what they come into contact with, using hand sanitizer, washing their hands, as well as how they engage each other. And so those will be the recommendations. Those are the standard recommendations that have come from the health department and CDC.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, dial 7 on your dial pad. Press 7 on your dial pad to key in, and you will be connected with a screener. That screener will take your question, and we will post it up on our screen. A reminder for you, and then we'll go to our next question as well. A 15-second reminder for you for our current poll question we have for you. During this time, is your church offering any of the following services? Press 1 for food pantry. Press 2 for child care. Press 3 for senior care or senior services. Once again, during this time, is your church offering any of the following services? Press 1 for food pantry. Press 2 for child care. Press 3 for senior care or senior services. We're going to give you another 15 seconds to respond, and as we're doing that, we're loading our next question as well that we will turn to the mayor to ask him this question. So, Mayor, as we were waiting, we've got another question in there popping in right now. Are there any stipulations on having services outside with attendees in cars?
So the drive, what I would define as the drive-through church service is actually allowed. So let me define that. Visualize. Many of you all would know a drive-through movie theater where you pull up in your vehicle and you are in a position to watch a screen. I think in this case, maybe the faith leader actually stands outside on some type of podium or pulpit and connects through electricity from inside the building through a cord or whatnot. Here's the difference, though. At a drive-through movie theater, we're able to get out of our cars and go use the restroom, or we're able to get out of our cars and go get something to eat, or we're just able to get out of our cars and stand. That's the part that's not allowed. So if any of you all as faith leaders are considering doing a drive-through style service, we've been asked, even for some of our facilities, and what we've said in those cases, the restroom, the bathroom is not open or available. In addition to that, people can't get out of their cars, whether it's to stretch or shout, praise dance, or any of those things. You run into a slippery slope there. And so we want to encourage faith leaders, if you choose to exercise that, please remind your parishioners that they are to remain in their cars. The last thing, again, we want is any unintentional spread of the COVID-19. So the whole idea is to create social distancing. And so if you're in a vehicle with your family members, that's different from jumping in the vehicle with some friends you haven't seen in a while, etc. So that is allowed. I would imagine this, and I'll go ahead and preempt this question centered around funerals. It's the same. There's still guidance around how many people can actually attend a funeral service in person inside of an actual physical space. However, one of the exceptions does include I'm not sure what other term I can use, but the whole idea of people being allowed to sit in their vehicles and watch a screen and or a person outside.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We have another poll question. We're getting a screening question coming in right now, so as that's being put into the system, I'll ask you our next poll question for you. This is an opportunity to learn more about what you are doing. Is your church offering members specialized services in response to COVID-19? We've been discussing that with the mayor. So our question, is your church offering members specialized services in response to COVID-19? Press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. Once again, is your church offering members specialized services in response to COVID-19? Press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. If your church is offering members specialized services or is not. We will keep that open for about 3 minutes as people respond to questions here on the line. We've got another question. It seems like it's very similar to the other one, but we will move on to this. This question, how can the drive-through style service not cause an issue with shelter in place?
Because you're not going to get out of your vehicle. In addition to that, the state had some wording around how churches can engage. So the drive-through, as long as people don't get out of the cars, keeps you in compliance.
Another thing, Mayor, just to remind, I think this is one of the conversations we've had, you had with somebody the other day. We've seen many situations, even with businesses, where they're doing pickup and takeout for food or everything. Some markets are continuing where people are pulling up, staying in their car, not rolling down their window, but their back window is rolled down, and items are being placed in that. You've seen situations like that as well, correct?
Yes, so I do understand that some faith leaders may want to make that applicable to this Sunday as it relates to communion. I would highly suggest that if anybody is handling those prepackaged bag that consists of some form of communion, that person's temperature is checked before they're allowed to touch those bags. But if you're able to create some type of distribution style chain on your actual church grounds or place of worship grounds, that you make sure that baggie is simply placed in the back seat because the driver rolled that window down, so there's no actual physical exchange or contact between the volunteer of that church, that parishioner, passing that item to that actual person in the vehicle.
Thank you, Mayor. There is one question that's following up. Somebody, I think this is related to the poll, asking if you define specialized services. Our question was, is your church offering members specialized services in response to COVID-19? The question is, define specialized services. Our understanding or our intent of this is, are you holding services online? Or are you able to hold them on TV, arrange for radio, arrange for some kind of phone call, anything along those lines, correct, Mayor?
A specialized service would be defined as anything outside of the traditional church service in the physical space where people actually worship together.
Mr. Mayor, let me close off this poll and then we'll move on. We've got other questions coming in right now. But let me close this poll out. One more time I'll ask this question. Is your church offering members specialized services in response to COVID-19? Press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. You will have 15 seconds to respond to that question. While we were waiting for our next questions to come in, Mr. Mayor, just to let you know, Congresswoman Sewell is on the line right now if you would like to invite her to join in this conversation.
Yes, this will be a good time to yield the floor to Congresswoman Terry Sewell. And before she speaks, let me state this. To these faith leaders, I want to thank Congresswoman Terry Sewell for her advocacy, passion, and leadership during this time in advocating not only for Americans, but especially for her district, making sure things in this CARES Act is helping the people she represents. So with that, I yield the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you and your staff for your steadfast leadership in this time of crisis. Indeed, we are in a crisis, an unprecedented crisis that has required an unprecedented federal response as well as an unprecedented city and state response. I want to thank our faith-based leaders. I know that in times of crisis like this, we lean on our church and our faith, and I know that they are on the front lines of helping their parishioners and our constituents deal with this crisis, this pandemic. I want to first just say that the unprecedented times that we live in have given the federal government an opportunity to really step up in an unprecedented way to provide the stimulus that we need to not only get through this public health crisis through aid to our health care providers, but also this public health crisis has led to an economic crisis of an unprecedented measure and has put a real strain on our economy. I want to thank the mayor again for his steadfast leadership in being on the forefront as Jefferson County and the city of Birmingham have become the hardest hit area in our state. And the foresight of closing down and offering curfews and stay-at-home orders, I know was hard, but I really do appreciate your leadership in this, but it really has led to our state now having a statewide stay-at-home order. So I want to thank you again, sir, for that. I also want to just say that of the 3 bills that have passed Congress, none has been more unprecedented in terms of stimulus money that directly will affect our faith-based leaders as well, and that is the CARES bill, the last bill that we passed. Congress passed on March 27th the Coronavirus Assistance, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, otherwise known as CARES Act, to assist individuals, small businesses across this country. Many of those benefits are available to our church or ministry and their employees. I want to call your attention to a frequently asked questions sheet that my staff has prepared specifically for churches. It's on our website, sewell.house.gov. But, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to give just 3 points on this. First, the church and pastors and the church employees are eligible for benefits through the direct payments that the CARES Act authorizes and appropriated money. That's the $1,200 per individual and $500 per child, per minor child. Congress passed in that law that provides every American with direct payments to help individuals and families make it through these tough times. And, of course, our pastors and other church employees are eligible for that. Likewise, pastors and ministerial staff who have lost their jobs, unfortunately, through the coronavirus crisis are eligible for unemployment benefits under the CARES Act. This includes the standard state benefit of $275, but also a special temporary federal compensation of $600 per week per individual who's been laid off or furloughed because of the coronavirus. CARES Act also provides an additional 13 weeks of federal emergency unemployment benefit of $600 per week, so that's up to 4 months. Likewise, certain churches will be able to apply for the SBA, Small Business Administration loans. The Paycheck Protection Program, PPP loans, provide federal guaranteed loans to help small businesses cover their expenses and maintain their payroll. These loans may be fully forgivable if the organization retains their employees in the upcoming months. Churches operating as 501c3 may use this program to cover salaries and certain overhead operating expenses. This includes houses of worship, which meet the requirements of the IRS Section 501c3, regardless of whether they have been granted tax-exempt status thus far or not. If they have an application even in for a 501c3 status, they may be able to apply for these special small business loans that are forgivable. Lastly, I want to also direct churches that also meet this 501c3 eligibility requirement. They may also be eligible for what the SBA is also doing. These are economic injury disaster loans and emergency grants. The EIDL loans are low interest rate loans to cover expenses that would have been met had the disaster not occurred, including payroll and other operating expenses. Similar to the PPE loan program, the SBA has alerted us that churches operating as 501c3 may be eligible for these loans and the grants, a one-time grant of $10,000 that if you apply for these loans, you will get within the first 3 days. This is just part of the Q&A that we have available, Mr. Mayor, on our website, sewell.house.gov, under frequently asked questions for churches. This will be available as a resource. There are also tax benefits that churches can also apply for, like the employee retention tax credit that they can get as a fully refundable payroll tax credit when they file their taxes. So I just want to reiterate what you said, Mr. Mayor, that in this time of crisis, we all need to work together, federal, state, and local communities, as we try to meet the challenges. This is a serious crisis that unfortunately has disproportionately affected the African American community, but all communities have been affected by this, and we have to work together, federal, state, and local government, to work on behalf of the people, for the people in this time of crisis. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and your staff for all that you're doing, and to our faith-based leaders that are on this call for all that you're doing to comfort us in that time of need. But do know that there are also resources that are available for our faith-based community from the federal government, and you can ascertain those on our website at sewell.house.gov. Of course, my staff and I remain available as partners in the with the faith-based community to help you in whatever way we can in this time of crisis. Thank you.
Congresswoman Sewell, thank you so much for that rich information. I imagine those faith leaders find it very helpful, and I'm glad you told them they know how to follow up with you in your office if they have any additional questions on how the CARES Act and the federal resources you've assisted in bringing to the community can assist them in their individual place of worship. I do have a correction as well I needed to add. We spoke about special services. Special services can also include those social services many of you all as faith leaders provide outside of your actual, I would say, defined as church service. So many of you all run different programs that assist the community. So specialized services also includes that. I just wanted to make that note. I'm passing it back to Rick now.
Thank you, Mayor. We have another poll question we would like to ask those who are on the line right now. This deals with a communication plan. Have you developed an emergency communication plan for distributing timely information to church employees and those you serve in your church? Again, the question, have you developed an emergency communication plan for distributing timely information to church employees and those you serve? Press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. Once again, press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. We will keep this question open for about 3 minutes so that you can plug in your answers. I will remind you once again, and then we'll move forward. We have our next question coming in, and this is about programs that the city may be involved in. Stand by one moment as I pull this one up. Mayor, the question is, are there long-term plans to feed Birmingham City Schools children, and is the city involved in that?
The answer is yes and yes. There is a long-term plan. Of course, many of you all know the school system had to abruptly stop its feeding program as of yesterday due to some employee issues related to COVID and engaging in anxiety and fears. And for the record, it's not only the school system. The city of Birmingham also has employees that are facing high anxiety and fear. It's a ripple throughout the nation. Many of you all know locally, the local company that delivers groceries, even some of their employees spoke to their fear and anxiety today in protesting. So as school systems and cities and states and even employers in the private sector continue to find a balance of providing their service and protecting their employees at the same time, that dance is not always easy. That's the honest truth. Because of that, we're going to have to find other ways to get food to our children, which is a priority. in my mind, and I imagine in many of your minds, it doesn't matter how important math, reading, social studies, science, and other core curriculum is if children are hungry. So we have to make feeding them a priority. The good news is that there is already an organization that the city and the school system partner with every summer called Kickstart. They're going to extend their services for the remaining of the school year, which will be April 13th through March 28th. I think if my math is correct, that is about the remaining six and a half, almost 7 weeks of school remaining. This program will use the current distribution sites that the school system already has in place as of yesterday, and will be able to deliver on the minimum short end 4,000 meals to those children that are in need. Remember, of the 23,000 households, of the 23,000 children that attend Birmingham City schools, the total of households is 13,000. So this is a significant number of children that will be able to be a part of this feeding program. Take no credit for this. We have people like Commissioner Sheila Tyson, as well as Dr. Jackson of Kickstart, as well as Superintendent Dr. Herring and her school board members, who have been active in making sure we offset what the school system is no longer able to do in the short period. As it relates to tomorrow and Thursday, because Friday is an actual holiday, there is a very short stopgap that the private sector is picking up to make sure those same children can eat tomorrow as well as Thursday. The City of Birmingham and donations from various donors have made school students to pick up free lunches at 18 rec centers. That will be, again, tomorrow, April 8th, and Thursday, April 9th. For students up to 18 years old, I'm reading a note now. Because the City of Birmingham has many of its public facilities closed, this program is closed Good Friday, as if school was closed, because it is, technically. Lunches will be distributed at the following Birmingham rec centers: East Pinson Valley, Fountain Heights, Hawkins, Inglenook, MLK, Memorial, North Birmingham, Willowwood, Central Park, Inslee, Harrison, Henry, Crumpton, Hooper City, Howes, Sanford, McAlpine, Roosevelt, Sandusky, and Wiggins. So we will make sure that our children can continue to be fed.
And Mayor, if I can add one other thing, this is a release for everybody who's on this line. You're getting this a little bit early. We're finalizing the details to put this release out to the media and on all of the City of Birmingham social channels and digital channels. You can check back at birminghamal.gov probably within the hour, and you'll be able to see the full release if you'd like to share it with your congregations as well and with your parishioners. One other piece on that, because it will not be operating on Friday due to the Good Friday holiday, the organizers have agreed that on Thursday the 9th they will do a double pickup. So on Thursday the 9th, those who come will be able to pick up their lunch for that Thursday, but they will also have a second lunch that we provided for Friday as well to cover the fact that they will be closed on Friday. So you will have the Wednesday and Thursday pickup, but Thursday's pickup will include an extra meal for the Friday holiday period as well. So just to pass that along, that release is going out momentarily to the public, and you can keep an eye on it. You can gather information on that at birminghamal.gov within the hour or so. So I am going to follow up on this polling question that we have. Have you developed an emergency communication plan for distributing timely information to church employees and those you serve? Once again, if you have not answered yet, your last chance to do it. You have about 15 seconds to do this. Press 1 for yes if you've developed an emergency communication plan. Press 2 for no if you have not developed an emergency communication plan. You have 15 seconds to answer that question. With that, a couple of things I'd like to pass along. If you have additional questions that you have not asked yet and you would like to put them in, you can, at the end of this phone call, you can press 7, hold at the end of the call, and you will be able to submit a question at that time that we can follow up with you as well. And with that, I will turn to the Mayor for some closing statements.
Again, I start with few thank yous. Thank you to the faith leaders on this call, and thank you to Congresswoman Terry Sewell for both your leadership from our faith leaders and leadership from our federal leadership team. The people on this call understand the impact of community, the impact of family, and the impact of leadership. And I'm just in a position as mayor to simply say that a couple things. One, I am more than confident that we will get through this health crisis and economic crisis. This time, even though we're apart, we are together. It does require not only leadership and communication, but it requires a lot of compassion as well. And I want to thank you all for being compassionate, not only to your parishioners, but to the community as a whole. Let us continue to serve and lead, and let us continue to communicate the importance of taking this seriously so we can get through this and find a way to get back to what we know. With that, I want to yield the floor to Rabbi Stephen Slater to close us out in prayer, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day.
Thank you, Mayor, so much. I just want to pray. This is Rabbi Stephen Slater from Temple Bethel, our city's Jewish conservative synagogue. I'll be using both English and Hebrew as we finish here today. Oh God, change is hard, but this is a time when we have to change how we do things this week. So I want to thank you that you are the God who graciously grants us wisdom, who teaches us mortals insight. You give us the ability to pivot, to turn on a dime, and this week we need it. Please grant these leaders of their congregations the creativity to figure out how to deliver services to their people, life-saving services to their people safely. May no one in the state operate a regular in-person service, forcing the hand of the authorities to keep everyone safe. Give them the resourcefulness to change how we work, the courage to go online, and the ability to engage our young people in doing this vital work. God, by and large, my synagogue abandoned the internet and have not used it. This is a time to change that, to re-enter the common space of the internet through sharing video, through giving our services and our blessings to the whole wide world, not just our membership. May we find the courage to put out our message on social media to bring people together, all from the safety of their homes at this time. Oh God, this is a time when we as a nation, when we as a city, and each one of us as a congregation and the leaders of our congregation need healing. So heal us, O Lord, and we shall be healed. Save us, and we shall be saved. Bring a complete healing, a refuah shlema, for all of our sicknesses. For you, O God, are the King, the faithful one who compassionately heals us. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, O Lord, who heals all flesh. And I'll pray in Hebrew. Misha berach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov, Sahara Rivka Rachel Leah, uYevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Refuat hanefesh, ורפואת הגוף בתוך שאר חולי ישראל ירפא את כל החולים בגלה ובזמן קרוב ונאמר Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our holy mothers Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bring a blessing of healing, healing of the body, healing of the soul, to each of those on this call and their congregants. May you restore health, strength to each of those who are in need, so that together with all those who are ill and those who are well, tending to them, we can confidently hope and pray that our healing is at hand. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you so much, Rabbi, and to all the faith leaders on this call. We look forward to continued dialogue and communication and updates from the city of Birmingham. If we can be helpful in anything, please let us know. And everyone have a good day. Take care.